Got a few courses of brickwork left to lay. We're gonna look at 5 different ways that we can lay brick. We'll start off with, I guess what's called the traditional method, or I've heard people call it long bed method. What we're doing is, as a righty, spreading left to right, just like normal. We're gonna furrow it. We're gonna spread the whole wall, the length of the whole wall. Furrow the mortar. We're trying to get the mortar out to the face of the brick and to the back of the brick. We'll take some of this excess that's going to go in the cavity. And what we'll do is, each course, I'll lay some left to right and some right to left, and then some sort of head on. So you'll see sort of the difference. That's gonna be that way at work. Sometimes you're gonna be going right to left or left to right. And you're gonna need to turn your body and do some brickwork head on. This is the traditional way. This is the way we're gonna do it. I'm gonna say 98% of the time in the US. Traditional, whether left to right or right to left. And this is what it's going to look like. Double buttering, putting mortar on the head of the brick that we just laid, and mortar on the head of the brick that we're about to lay. This is again, the traditional way. We'll lay one more going left to right. And then we'll do what it looks like from right to left. Notice my body position. I'm behind the brick that I'm laying. I'm behind the brickwork. Now we're gonna go from right to left. And how I stand. Now I'm ahead of the brickwork. My body is where the brick haven't been laid yet. And when I go right to left, typically, I don't double butter. I don't put that head joint on the brick that I just laid. Typically. Why? I don't know. This is what it looks like going right to left, traditional way. Now I'm going right to left, and we can make pretend that another bricklayer is coming left to right. Well, as we get close to the middle of the wall, I'm backing up into them. And bricklayer etiquette, you don't want to be backing up into another bricklayer. Now you want to turn, and you want to face it straight on. And this is what it's going to look like when we're laying straight on. Pretty much anytime you're putting a head joint on the brick, just try and keep it at 2 swipes. 1, 2. Second one is always down the face. That's going to clear this mortar away. So when we go to lay it to the line, we're not getting mortar on the string line. Close your brick. We can do what's called the flying wedge. Wedge of mortar there. Wedge of mortar there. Now we'll do that reverse on the brick. Wedge, wedge. Wedges go together. Nice, full closure. That's the traditional way. Again, we're going to be doing that I said 90-something% of the time in the US. That gets everybody on the same page. This could be a long wall. What it is that gets everybody spreading mortar together. Then once the whole bed is spread, the whole course is spread, then everybody starts laying brick. It puts everybody on the same page. Now we'll do, I guess, I don't know what method it's called. It's the way that I see people do it in the UK. They'll get a big trowel of mud, plop it on, then scoop a trowel off of there and spread. I can't even do it that great. Big trowel mud, plop, scoop it again, spread. I think this would probably work better, maybe lend itself better to bigger trowel. This definitely, I'll say, keeps you from going back to the pan, where they use boards over there a whole lot. Keeps you from going back to the pan more. I guess may help improve efficiency, but we're still spreading left to right. We're still gonna furrow the mortar out to the face of the wall into the back. And what we'll do, how about this? This course, instead of putting the head joints, we'll say forward, we're gonna put the head joints backwards. What I mean is, I'll start off this course right to left. The head joint's already on the brick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it forward of the brick. Just another style. Not really double buttering. Not putting any mortar on that side of the brick. I'll say maybe 5% of the bricklayers in the US will lay them this way. That's fine. Nothing special by putting mortar joints on the head. We'll do some from left to right now. Or left to right. What did I say? Right to left. It's putting mortar on the head of the brick that we're going to lay into. Still just 2 swipes. Of course, we want nice full head joints and full bed joints. Here, not quite full. Now we'll lay some head on. So really the only difference was in how we spread this course. A lot of mud on the course and then taking a trowel full of mud from there and spreading some more. So we'll say we did a US method and perhaps the UK method. Now we'll do a method that is super old that is becoming, I'll say, more popular. Pick and dip method. That's where we pick one brick and dip our trowel in the mud and get a trowel full of mortar. One trowel of mud per brick. We'll do some right to left, left to right, and head on. What we don't really do is put head joints on the brick as we lay them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab brick, trowel full of mud. On there, we're gonna do what's called a shove joint. At least that's what I've been told it's called. We're shoving that mortar into the head joint. Still gives us a nice full head joint. One brick, one trowel. Where it doesn't fill at the top. In theory, we're going to be spreading mortar on the next course, and we're going to be filling that. I use this method in competitions, believe it or not. Looks slow. For me, it's pretty quick. That's the way it's going to look right to left. Now from left to right. The benefits of this method is when the things we can't control, such as the weather, or maybe the brick themselves are wet. If it's super hot out and the mortar dries up quick, we might not be able to spread a whole lot of mortar on the wall and lay the brick. The mortar is going to be too stiff, too dried up by the time we get to it. So pick and dip works for, I'll say, pretty much any adverse conditions. If it's rainy and we spread the whole wall, now all that mud is getting wetter and wetter, and now we're going to lay brick on top of it. Now, and again, the adverse of that, if it's super hot, this mortar will stay fresh. We're only putting one trowel of mud on there. This mortar stays good. Now we'll do a couple head on. And it's just giving you different perspectives of the different methods of laying brick. We will double butter the last brick. Two methods left. One, I've only used this method in my career, I'm gonna say 2 or 3 times. This is for when it is super hot out and you need to get down in height. Not a recommended method. Face shell bedding. This is putting a thin bed of mortar on the front and the back. It's very similar to block laying. There's going to be situations where you lay brick and, you know, ideally we would go a long time, hours, before we would have to strike up the wall. Some situations I've laid brick where you'd have to lay 2 or 3 brick and strike it up pretty much immediately. So this is just face shell bedding. And we'll do some left to right. This is good for when you have to get down in height. Your brickwork is too high and we need to get down. You can do this. Well, what's the negatives about it? Negatives about it, you don't have quite as full of a bed joint. So let's do a little make pretend. What if we were raking this mortar out? Now there isn't much mortar behind here. When we rake it out, we might cut out into the center of the brick, towards the center of the brick, and we just might have a bunch of holes in our work. There's a time and a place for each one of these. And with this, it was a situation where I did this. It was a crazy hot day. And the moisture of the mortar was getting sucked up really fast. And it was happening to everybody. We're like, what is going on? Well, we didn't realize it. We didn't realize for a couple weeks that the laborer mixing up the mortar wasn't putting any lime in the mud. It was just straight cement and sand. And we looked over and he was running out of cement, but he still had 2 full skids of lime. So, are you putting the lime in the mud? He said, what's that? Oh, that was that. So that's what it's gonna look like right to left. The face shell bedding. Now we'll do some straight on. We'll do some straight on, but left to right. So far we covered traditional, long bed, they might call it. We did it the way that they'll do out in the UK. We did pick and dip and we did face shell bedding. Now we'll do a way that you've probably never seen before. And I don't even know what the application would be. First, I want to talk about this tie-in system that we have here. I kind of wish they would use something like this in the UK. I talk like I've worked so much in the UK. I worked 2 days, that's it, in the UK. And I wasn't crazy about their tie-in system, the way they tie their walls together. Works, definitely works. But they put those long pieces of wire from either the blockwork. The blockwork doesn't necessarily always go up first in the UK. Sometimes the brickwork goes up first. And they'll leave the ties coming out of the back straight out. Or it doesn't leave much room for, I guess, adjustability up and down. With these type of ties, one, they don't get in your way because these end in the cavity. They call this eye wire. This wire goes into the blockwork. These eyes stick out and we put these hooks in. But these eyes end in the cavity, so they're never in the way of your hands while you're laying the brick. Then once we get to height, we put these hooks in. The hooks are supposed to come a little further out. You could buy different size hooks, but for training purposes, these are just fine. The hooks come out, but the height is adjustable with these hooks. So if your brickwork is a little high, the hooks just don't go down into the eyes as much. That's all. They don't get in the way of your hands. We got one course left. And this isn't marked out. So let's see where I'm going to be. Something out there. And something out there. And I don't know, you tell me what this method will be called. Putting the mortar on every individual brick. Putting the bed joint on. And the head joint. I think this is the way they do it in cartoons. Do you have a name for this method? Cool. Put it in the comments. What's the use of this method? Let's see, practical use? I don't know. Towards the end of the day and you're screwing around at work, that's when it can come into play. You just wanna, I don't know, mess around. That's what it's going to look like right to left. And we'll do some left to right. I guess for the positives of this method, we are compressing the mortar. We are getting pretty full bed joints and head joints. I think it might be slow. Down the face, down the back, do the sides, and then the head joint. And do the last couple sort of straight on. Last few I did kind of straight on. Practical use of this, I don't know. There you go. 5 different ways of laying brick. Can you tell the difference? Nope.